Hey friends, it's Simon Hurley, and sometimes your card needs just that little extra thing to make it pop. So today I'm going to show 3 different techniques to really add lots of shine and dimension to your card making projects. Let's get into it. Alright, I'm going to start off this first card with the Slimline Mosaic Floral Stencil. This one is a layering stencil, and it's got 2 separate layers to it. I'm going to be sharing a technique using glitter paste today through this stencil. The design is pretty simple, so there's nothing really too difficult about the layering. However, both of the stencils have the names in the bottom corner as well as numbers, and you want to make sure you can read these while you're putting it down so that your stencil isn't backwards. So I'm going to place a piece of my cardstock down onto the Brutus Monroe Stick and Stamp mat, and it's going to hold it in place. I've been loving this mat to hold down my stencils. Unfortunately, it's out of stock right now, but there are a couple similar mats that are sticky like this. So I'm going to then place down my Slimline stencil, and you can kind of stick it on the sides there, but I'm just using a regular A2 size card, so you can still use this on a smaller card like this. For the first layer, I'm inking up the background with a little bit of clear skies, and I'm using these Gina blender brushes. Of course, you could use any blending brush, but the reason why I like to use blending brushes instead of foam here is because there's so many little tiny details, and the blending brushes have those little bristles which get into all those little areas and keep it super nice and crisp. So just quickly blending that through the stencil, and then to add a little bit of shading, I'm going in with a little bit of a darker blue, no diving, and going just around the edges to shade that in. Now I love this stick and stamp mat because of this exactly. You can kind of move things and shift it around and nothing is taped down. So you can just kind of move that piece as you're blending so that it's easier for you. Alright, then I can really quickly peel off that stencil, and I love how that one looks. And then I'll go in with the larger flower layer and place that down, just quickly lining it up, and then again, sticking it kind of down to that mat quickly and easily. So I'm going to start off with a little bit of ink on this layer too, but you'll see how we step it up in just a second. So I'm going in again with the blending brushes and applying my colors down. I'm starting off with a little bit of Shooting Star, which is this beautiful yellow color. And I always, when I'm shading flowers, I like to start in the center of the flower. I find that that's going to be the darkest area, and then I blend out from there. Then I'll go in with a little bit of Roar to shade that out. You can see just how beautifully those blend together. And then to finish it off, I'm going in with a smaller foam tool in the center using a little bit of Bee Sting to darken the center out. Now, I am loving how this background looks. You can see I peeled it off there, and you could leave this just as is. It's gorgeous. But instead, I'm going to take a little bit of glitter paste. This happens to be a little bit of Stickles glitter gel, and they recently released a couple new colors as well, so I'll probably have to do a video on this soon. I absolutely love this stuff, and in today's video, I'm just simply using the clear glitter paste. I'm going to place down my stencil right back over the top, and then I can go through with a palette knife using this sheer paste. So the base of this paste is clear, and then it's full of just a bunch of glitter. So it's not really changing the color at all, and it's not covering up the bright colors that we did either. It's just putting over a layer of nice glitter. Now this Stickles glitter gel is a little bit unique in the fact that it has kind of different shapes of glitter in it too, especially in the other colors. They have like stars and things like that. In this one it's a little bit finer, but it's still got kind of chunkiness to it that most glitter pastes don't have. You can kind of see it there, and I'll show you too once it's dry in just a second. So then to clean off my mat, all you have to do is just spray down a little bit of water and use a little bit of a lint-free cloth. Here I'm using paper towel, and then I can wipe everything off. My inks come off really nice and clean, and then once that mat dries, like once the water is off of there, it's going to stay nice and sticky, which is really great. Then here is this glitter paste dry. Again, I love how it looks because once it's dry, you can see all that beautiful color underneath, but there's those kind of different shards of glitter that really brighten it up. Then for the sentiment, I'm going in with the Bold Bouquet stamp set. This one's got a lot of great sentiments, but I wanted something really small, so I'm just going in with the Hello sentiment heat embossed on some black cardstock. Again, guys, I love how this background looks. That's super awesome and easy ink blending, but then it really gets stepped up by that beautiful Stickles glitter gel that you can put over top. Love it. So for this next card, I'm going in and doing something for Easter. So I'm using the Egg Hunt background stamp from Simon Hurley Create. This has some peel apart pieces that you can use individually, but today I'm just going to use it as a whole background altogether. I'm going in with my anti-static powder tool because I'm going to do some heat embossing, and then I'll ink it up with clear sticky Versamark ink, and we can stamp this down. To do my stamping, I'm just going to place my paper right onto my stamp, and then I like to go in with a pressure tool. Here I'm using the Debbie pressure tool, and I just go on the back and smooth it over all the way across. This just makes sure there's a nice even pressure and you're going to get a beautiful stamped image. So once that's all complete, I can go in and throw over my layer of clear heat embossing powder, sprinkle that over top and make sure it's all nice and covered. And once it is, we can go in and heat set this. I'm just going in with my heat tool until it turns nice and clear and shiny, and this is going to create a really great resist. So then I'm going in with my perfect pearls, and I'm going to create a palette here. I actually laid down a craft sheet on my surface to protect it, and then I'll go in and just scoop out the perfect pearls. You can use a little spoon. Here I use a little folded up piece of paper, and you're going to want to create a palette of the colors. Now I use a little bit of perfect pearls. You can see kind of the amount of powder that I did there. The more powder you add, the more shine it's going to have, and the less powder you add, the less shine it's going to have. Same thing with the water. The more you dilute it down, the less shine it's going to have. So keep that in mind when you're creating your colors. There's really no right or wrong way to do it though. Then I'm just going to spray my water down into there and then mix it in with my paintbrush. And once you've kind of mixed those paints together, you've created your own watercolors and they're going to have beautiful shine. So I'm going to go in on my surface here and lay it down in stripes and paint it onto my black cardstock. And again, like I said, that embossing is going to resist these perfect pearls beautifully and create a beautiful, nice black image that's going to stay. So then I'll kind of blend these colors together. You can mix them really nicely, just like normal watercolors. And you'll see here that they're not really like overwhelmingly super shiny, but once these dry, they're going to give a ton of shine. I find with most mediums that have this kind of pearl powder in it, once it's dry, it shines a ton more. Also, I love the colors here. I love that Perfect Pearls has lots of options because I went in with some beautiful Easter tones like this mint, the yellow, and pink and purple together. I love that color combination. And there it is once it's all completely dry. You can see that shine is just so much more stunning. I don't know what happens, but once it is all nice and dry without any water, it's beautiful. So then, once I'm done with that, I'm going to take the excess pearl powders. We're not going to let that go to waste. I'm going to take another piece of my black cardstock and just start dipping it into the powder there. And that's going to create this beautiful kind of watercolor look. It's a little bit more abstract, but honestly, this background is just as beautiful. I'm going to kind of heat set it just because I'm a little bit impatient and want it to dry quickly, but of course you could let it air dry. And then I'm going to go back in and add more layers by continuously dipping it into that color. And you can see just how much that shine really gets a lot brighter once it's nice and dry. And that background is so stunning. It almost gives this kind of really cool and beautiful galaxy look to it. So definitely use up the waste. Don't just throw that away or wipe it up. So then to finish off this card, I'm using the Hoppy Easter stamp set. This one has that adorable bunny in the top left corner. We're going to be using him and that little Easter basket too. So I'm going to go in and stamp him out using a little bit of black ink, and I'll also stamp down that Easter basket as well right next to him. I'm going to then heat emboss this because whenever I do any watercoloring, I like to use heat embossing to stay inside the lines. So then I'm going to go in and heat set that with a heat tool, and I also love how it kind of intensifies the black ink and makes it look really nice and clean and finished. So once that's nice and clear and shiny, we can go in and start our watercoloring. I'm going to create a palette of my ink pads here on my craft sheet using a bunch of different Simon Hurley Create colors, and you just swipe them on to get that color that you want. Then I'm going to go in and start my watercoloring. Now when I do my watercoloring, I like to use a normal brush so I can get the most control, and I like to start off by adding water down onto the surface of my cardstock. If you guys have seen my videos before, you know I preach this, but adding that water down is going to really help your colors blend on the surface and get them ready for the color. So instead of the color sinking right in and not being able to move, you're easily able to create a nice wash of color and have it blend together really beautifully. So if you've struggled with watercolor, that's going to really help you. Then once you got that kind of base layer of color down, you can then go in with less water and more of that color and do a little bit of shadows and depth and dimension. I just go here in some of kind of the corner areas or where different parts meet and add that shading down, which is going to really bring the image to life. Also, don't be afraid to mix colors together because they're not going to contaminate each other since you're just creating a DIY kind of palette here that you're going to wipe up. So I went in with a little bit of yellow and brown together to create a nice kind of warm tone for that bunny. And then I'm going to go in and add a little bit of pink to his stomach and cheeks to really bring it to life. Then I'm going to go in once that's all dry and fussy cut it out. I like to use these Fiskars Spring Assist scissors for my fussy cutting. It makes it really easy because they spring back out at you, so your hands don't get tired when you're cutting this out, and it also is great at getting into smaller little details. I just leave a little white border around it too, so it makes it easier for me. So then once that's all complete, I'll add it down onto my card with his little Easter basket, add down the sentiment Happy Easter from that same stamp set, and that finishes it off beautifully. I love that bold background with those beautiful perfect prose colors, and that bunny finishes it off just so beautifully for this nice playful Easter card. For this last card, I'm going in using the Grand Greenery stencil. I love this one. It's got these kind of swirly branches that are just beautiful and elegant. So I'm going to take this stencil, and I'm starting off again on my Brutus Monroe stick and stamp mat. I'll place my cardstock down, and then I'm going to place the stencil right over top, kind of center those branches there, and we're going to be creating kind of a rainbow of branches around the edge. You could, of course, do this in one color, and that's going to be a lot less work, but I wanted the background to really steal the show and be the focal point that's super bright. So I went in again with my Gina K blending brushes. Again, I find that these get into the details really nice and beautifully with these sort of more intricate stencils. So then I'll go in and start my rainbow. So I started off with Prom Queen, then I'll go in with Bee Sting, and I'm going to blend these out. Now I'm not masking anything together here actually, I'm just letting the colors kind of bleed into each other so that they create beautiful blends of color together and kind of overlap them just a tiny little bit. Then I'm going in with a little bit of Slippery When Wet, and you'll notice here that I'm actually using all the colors that my Lunar Pastes have so far. So each one of these colors that I'm going in with has a matching Lunar Paste color, and that's going to kind of play into what we're going to do next as well. Now I do want to mention, like I said earlier, if you do think this kind of section is a little bit too time consuming for you, you also could just go in with like 1 or 2 colors and really easily just add nice shading to it. But I wanted to like step it up and really, I thought these branches would be a fun way to incorporate lots of color and make it super playful. So I'm finishing off with this beautiful triple berry color, which is that purple up top. And then I can easily peel off my stencil to reveal that beautiful background that we did. And like I said, each color is kind of blending into each other and it creates this really cool look. Now with this, I'm going to then kind of shift my stencil, turn it a little bit, and I'm going to fill in each space in between every single one of these. Now to do this with each different color, I'm going to have to do some masking. This is where I think it gets a little bit tedious. So like I said, if you wanted to just do one color, you could, but I wanted to be a little bit extra here. So I went in with my mint tape. This is the 4-inch mint tape. It doesn't rip your cardstock and it masks things off really easily since it's quite large. So I find that to be super helpful. And then I'm going to take a little bit of my Lunar Paste. I'm using the exact same colors that I used in the ink colors so that it kind of matches in between, but this is going to add that beautiful shine to it too. So you can see that when I peel it off, it just goes right in between there and it adds that shine. And then to clean it off in between each one, it's really simple. I just add a little bit of water and kind of scrub it off of that stencil. You also want to clean it off the blending brush. I find that it just kind of stays at the edges of the blending brush, so I just spray a little bit of water onto it and then I can quickly wipe off all the excess color. You want to make sure to do that so that the brush doesn't get crusty, and I keep a separate set of brushes just for the Lunar Pastes. So I'm going to then go in with the next color. I'm kind of adding it in the gaps in between the colors. And then to apply it to my blending brush, you don't want to dip it right into the jar. You actually want to lay a little bit down onto your craft sheet in a really flat layer, and then pick it up with your blending brush. By doing this in kind of that super flat layer, it's gonna kind of make sure that it doesn't get packed into the bristles and that it just stays right at the outside edge. I find that that was the best way to apply it onto this blending brush. And the great part about applying it on a blending brush and not a palette knife is because it's gonna apply it a lot thinner. And that makes it so that it can dry super fast. Lunar Paste has a really quick dry time anyways, but when you apply it in a super thin layer like this, it takes maybe 30 seconds at most. Each time I kind of had everything cleaned off and was ready to move the stencil, it was totally completely dry, which was awesome. So I'm onto the green here, again cleaning in between layers to make sure that my colors don't get muddy. And also if you want to add several layers of one color, like I said, it dries really fast. So I could wait like 10 to 15 seconds and then I can add another layer and it'll just intensify that color and make it even more shiny and beautiful. I love these pastes so much, and it's so cool that they coordinate with the inks, so you could do techniques like this. So then to finish this off, I'm going on the outside edge, and I'm just going to blend those same exact colors really lightly on the edge. I'm not even going back into the ink pad. I'm just using what's left over on those blending brushes. And by doing this, blending on the edge and leaving the center really bright, it's actually kind of drawing your eye to the center, which is where the focal point is going to be. So kind of darkening those edges brings your eye to the light point in the center. I love how it looks, and I do that technique quite often. So there is that effect. You can see once those are all dry, they are beautiful and shiny. And like I said, this background just kind of steals the show, and I love how they coordinate with each color. So then I'm going in here to finish it off. I like to kind of test out sentiments, and I found one from the Sketched Floral stamp set that's just this thank you in my handwriting. So I'm going to stamp that down with some clear sticky ink onto my black cardstock and white heat emboss that to really make it stand out nicely off of those colorful background. And that finishes it off beautifully. It doesn't need anything else. The time that we put into that masking really paid off, and I love, love, love how this card turned out with that beautiful shine. Alright guys, I hope you really enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up and leave a comment down below on which card was your favorite. Also, there's a full supplies list linked in the description, and if you use those links, it helps me out and I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for stopping by and crafting with me, and I'll see you all very soon for another card making video. Bye!